Good morning once again. Detroit in black and white. I'm Adolph Mongo. Joining me today, Allan Lengel, Deadline Detroit, Washington Post, Detroit News, and the world famous, now defunct publication, The Eagle American.
Yep.
And also sitting in for a second week in a row for our friend Vanessa Moss is Jim Nardone, former police chief from Trenton. Good morning.
Good morning.
Listen, 60 years ago this day, 250,000 people marched in Washington for civil rights. And it seems like, nothing has changed. It looks like we on regress.
I agree to some. And in some ways, we made tremendous progress in some areas, and then I hate to blame everyone, so I would blame it on Trump, but we went backwards quite a bit. Where it was okay. Look, we're not going to change. We're not going to eliminate racist thoughts, around the world, but we can suppress them. That it's not okay to make them public and make racist statements publicly. But when you have the president of the United States, when he's campaigning, his last campaign, and he says, you know what, your property values, you're going to have people moving in your neighborhood, your property values are going to go down, and this and that. I mean,
what is that? That's the term,
the dog whistle or whatever they call it, But,
no question. We here at McShane, so we want to thank Bob Roberts. As usual, Michigan in trouble. Folks are coming in. I guess, there's a lot of people, Jim, coming in from Houston to watch them play the Tigers. Why?
I think it's all about Justin Verlander.
Is he pitching today?
I have no idea.
Yeah,
well, they're in the race. I mean, that division is so tight. I think there's two teams maybe tied for first, Texas and Seattle, and then you have Houston is like one game out or something like that. It's a true pennant race.
Dusty Baker, what, about 100?
Yeah. Well, he's a good coach, man. The Rangers are still in there.
And they screwed him in D.C.
Yeah.
The Nationals screwed him.
Right.
But anyway, let's get down to it. I'll start with you, Jim. Your outrage of the week.
Well, my outrage is after watching that Republican debacle, not a debate, it was more of a debacle. I'm a little confused. I thought we were the United States of America, not the individual states of America. And it seems like people claim that the left is trying to divide. I will say this. It looks like everybody's trying to divide. It's a concern.
We have a little video here. If we can play.
I'm the only person on the stage who isn't bought and paid for.
Going back and forth, being childish is not helpful to the American people to decide on the next leader of our country.
This is exactly why Margaret Thatcher said, if you want something said, ask a man. If you want something done, ask a woman.
But the candidate drawing the most attention and criticism, Vivek Ramaswamy, the 38-year-old entrepreneur and fierce defender of Trump, recently seeing a rise in the polls.
I'm not sure I exactly understood Mike Pence's comment, but I'll let you all parse that out. For me, it's pretty simple. That's something a U.S. president can do with focus, and I'll deliver on it.
Well, let me explain it to you. Vivek, if I can. I'll go slower this time. We don't need to bring in a rookie. We don't need to bring in people without experience.
It was Ramaswamy's first debate.
You have no foreign policy experience, and it shows.
And you know what?
It shows.
Isn't Ramaswamy a vegetable or some shit?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Well,
Listen, that got dangerous.
He is running for vice president. He's sucking up to Trump.
Yeah.
He talks about climate change, which we're seeing the weather patterns around this world. Somebody asked this insurance owner who's a Republican, they said, do you buy into the climate change? He says, are you kidding me? He says, you want to see the payouts we've made in disasters over the last several years? He goes, of course I believe in it. This guy says it's nonsense, and he's a typical businessman who comes in and thinks everybody's supposed to go, oh my God, he's a businessman, he's successful. We've seen Rick Snyder, who didn't do a great job. I mean, he was not a horrible person, but he didn't do a great job. We see Trump, which, people will debate this, whether he did a good job. I don't think he did. And he's a businessman. They don't want to go by the checks and balances that we have here. But this guy is just.
But Lengel, Allan, y'all created this guy, and I say y'all is the media.
Yeah.
Oh, he's the flavor of the month. This motherfucker is a real threat. He's a Putin apologist. He want to pull support from the Ukraine. He don't like us giving money to Israel. All of a sudden, you know what? We too woke. Well, if woke is a bad word, I'm woke. There's no question.
And you know, the thing is, you're right. Like many friends at the New York Times, the Washington Post, and they'll, you know, the Trump. I had one friend say that he did a Trump story. He said these Trump stories blow up in terms of traffic. He's a magnet, and when in the 2016 campaign, the Washington Post, the New York Times got their mojo back as a result of Trump. The subscriptions went up. People were interested in him because I feel like he's a danger. He's a danger to America. And, you know, here's another interesting. Chris Christie said this during the
Here's the bottom line. Someone's got to stop normalizing this conduct. Okay? Now, whether or not you believe that the criminal charges are right or wrong, the conduct is beneath the office of President of the United States.
But you know what, Jim? Did you see anybody on that stage that you could support?
I don't see anybody on that stage. They seem like a bunch of Trump followers. And I'm all for states' rights, but let's talk about Roe v. Wade. That belonged in federal court. When it went back to the states, it put the country in chaos.
Well,
so when we talk,
Tim Scott, you can't have it both ways. Oh, it's great that South Carolina can just basically ban abortion, but then he's pissed because California and New York says abortion on demand. I don't care how many weeks you are. Oh, we got to take control of that. Either one way or the other.
they are all on the wrong side of history, and that's a problem for the Republican Party.
The abortion issue is going to be another big issue here. I mean, Trump could care less what abortion is. He's not an ideologue. He's about winning. It's about him. He doesn't really care. He used to be, I think, pro-choice, and now he's like, yeah, okay, I'm a conservative.
I bet how many women that you can find that Donald Trump paid for abortion.
Right, exactly.
I don't care what your position is. I was shocked by the way they behaved. I thought we were back in the 1970s and the 1960s. That's what it felt like.
Well, listen, Trump, remember he was in love with his daughter. She might have got an abortion. No, he screwed up. But having said all this, 3 or 4 of those folks that was on doing a debate, they could beat Biden. Biden.
I'll tell you, Nikki Haley, if she were running as a candidate in the general election, her comments were very broad, and she had some reasonable comments as a Republican on abortion and stuff. She was appealing more to a broader sense of independence, of disenfranchised or disenchanted Democrats. But the primary is a whole different thing. And then we saw that in 2022 here in Michigan, where Donald Trump backed the worst candidates possible. They all won the primary because Donald Trump, but they got killed in the general.
Donald Trump is handing the Democratic Party his election from the top all the way down to the bottom of the ticket. Man, and these folks, it's like they're in a trance. I love Donald Trump.
Sure.
I love Donald Trump.
Sure.
Have you ever seen the movie, what is that, not The Exorcist, but the other one with the devil, Gregory Peck was in there, the old one.
Oh, okay.
You remember one of the characters say, I belong to them, and you know what, they were killed for him, died for him, whatever. It's a civil war. Now, everybody want to be relevant. Right. Sarah Palin came out of the political graveyard and says, oh, it's becoming a civil war. Jim, are we becoming a civil war? Allan?
Well, you know what? It's questionable. Now, I think January 6th was sort of a tipping point where we thought, oh my gosh, this is the start of civil war. But I think a lot of those people are generally law-abiding people who are freaked out that they're now getting prison time. And I think that's been very impactful and a reminder that you just can't attack cops because your crazy president says go out there and do crazy things. I mean, he talks about, and we have here, he talks about January 6th here in the Tucker Carlson interview on the same night of the debate.
Get indicted, every week and stay cheerful.
And Hillary Clinton goes crazy. Every time she talks, she says, he's not the president. Jimmy Carter said, he's not the president. Well, I am the president.
Do you think we're moving towards civil war?
January 6th was a very interesting day because they don't report it properly. There was love in that. There was love and unity.
See, there were people wearing Camp Auschwitz sweatshirts. There were people. It's a soccer game there. There were people yelling the N-word at black officers, and that's his idea of a love-in. I mean, that's scary. It's dangerous, and for people on that stage during the debate to say, I will vote for him regardless if he gets convicted or whatever, it's insanity.
Well, they find it now that, in Georgia, these 19 people that have been indicted by the prosecutor in Georgia is finding out this is not a game. This is not a damn game. But they want Kemp, the governor, to do to the prosecutor there what DeSantis has been doing.
Right, fire.
And fire. And man, how can you fire somebody to get elected and then you just fire them?
It's so crazy. Ron DeSantis, I mean, if Kemp does that, there will be, you talk about a rebellion, that will trigger a lot of craziness if they ever did that to her. I think what's very dangerous, what we're seeing also in Washington is that, some of the congressional members are trying to intimidate the prosecutors and trying to go after them because they're entitled to do their job. You may not agree with the indictment. A lot of the candidates, including Nikki Haley, say it's all political and stuff like that. Well, how much can you break the law? If Nixon had done a fraction of what he had done, he would have been gone.
Well, Gerald Ford would have fucking didn't pardon me.
Right.
We wouldn't be having all that.
Right.
Well, now is not the time to be in court. This is not the time for Congress to be doing investigations. It should be post trial.
Congress is trying to intimidate, and they're trying to go after Fannie Willis. I love that name.
Yeah, but this is Trump's worst nightmare. The black woman in Georgia, in New York, in D.C. It's a blackout. You know how they.
Yeah, so I mean, look, the guy has said some
black. What did
stuff.
they say? Black is the new orange or something. Yeah, man. But hey, it is what it is. We're gonna see a lot in the next 6-7 months, and then we go from there. What the American people want to do. Can't put this guy back in office.
And the bottom line is also, they're trying to delay the trial of 2026. Well, you know what? The American people are entitled, with any case, they're entitled if somebody's running for office. And in this case, look, these investigations were going on way before he was, just announced his candidacy. You could have every mobster in the country, every gangster say, I'm running for president. You can't touch me.
Well, that's what we're going to do. We're gonna take a break. We're gonna come back with our first guest, the deputy mayor of the city of Detroit. Let's go to a break.
I'm Wayne County Treasurer Eric Sabri. We are living through unprecedented times. As a result, the Michigan Homeowner Assistance Fund was created. This fund, administered by the state of Michigan, is designed to help homeowners cope with pandemic-related hardships, such as delinquent property taxes. Residents may apply for up to $25,000 to help cover 2019, 2020, and 2021 tax years. Previous year's taxes must be paid in full or in a payment agreement with the Treasurer's office. Eligible homeowners must have a qualified financial hardship that occurred on or after January 21st, 2020. You must currently own and occupy your home as your primary residence and must have owned it since January 21st, 2020. To see if you qualify, please visit waynemetro.org Call 313-388-9799 or email taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Welcome back. You hear in the background. You know what? I hate soccer. I don't even know how people get geeked up to that, but they do get geeked up. They're passionate who playing.
I don't know, but I said Ted Lasso really made soccer more popular in the U.S.
I don't even know who that is. Yeah. But anyway,
have you watched Ted Lasso?
Yeah, I have started watching some of it. That's on Apple TV, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So I haven't finished all the episodes.
Yeah.
He's running for state rep. Well, anyway, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Todd Bettison. How you doing?
I feel great. I'm glad to be here this morning.
I'll tell you, one of my late co-hosts, Brenda Hill, and she can beat up on folks, but she always sang your praises, man. She had you on speed dial.
Brenda had me on speed dial. I had her on speed dial, so she would call me, I would call her, and so we would come to each other's rescue. Brenda was a phenomenal just advocate for everybody. And one thing I'd like to say about Brenda was the only person that never called and asked me for anything for herself. It was always for somebody else. So if Brenda was advocating, it was never for Brenda. It was always for other people.
Well, that's good. And she was an unselfish person and gave a lot. You're gonna be missing her.
Yeah.
No question. Tell our audience what's happening with the city.
Oh my God, man. So just very excited. This is my year and a half basically being in the role as deputy mayor. And so right now, one of the signature programs that I have that we've rolled out and some of the things that I brought to the mayor's office is called, the acronym is CVI, and that's Community Violence Intervention. And so you'll hear a lot more about it in Detroit, but it's not a new concept, but it's really about preventing violence, but from the community lens of prevention, putting it in the community's hands. And so we've invested in police, and I come from a police background. I did 27 years with the Detroit Police Department. So we've invested in giving officers raises. We've invested in technology. But we also, some of our core groups like the Jafari Brents, the Brenda Hills, and other folks say, what are you going to do to help the people? And so, you think about Detroit 300, you think about a new era, you think about a lot of those groups that you've seen standing with the chief saying that we called on to help keep peace in the streets of Detroit. And whether it was out there looking for a suspect or just from a preventative lens, mediating conflict, they said, well, we've been doing it for free. Why don't y'all invest in us? And so with the American Rescue Plan Act money, it gave us an opportunity to be able to invest in that, because we know with the pandemic, we saw a spike in violence across the country.
Right.
You come from the police department, and it's a frustration. We're residents of Detroit, and obviously, some parts of the city, Corktown, have really blossomed, Midtown, downtown. And you always hear, if you ride down the east side, you go down Mac, whatever, go down Grand River on the west side, there's still a lot that needs to be done. It seems overwhelming. How do you please everyone around the city and try to address it, like the crime issue and stuff like that?
I'll say it like this. It's an old thing, analogy. How do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. And so you have to start somewhere. And so if you can notice it, if you see throughout the mayor's administration, you just think about Blight, for example. Think about when he came into the office, the number of abandoned houses. No matter what part of the city that you go through, you're going to still see some abandoned houses, but you're going to see a lot more that we've either rehabbed through the land bank, or a whole lot more that we've torn down and then offered that land to residents where they can buy it if you have an adjacent lot. It's a side lot for $100. And so you have a lot going on in the neighborhoods, and I'm happy to report this, that by next year this time, all of the abandoned houses that the city owned via land bank, we will have torn them down, or they will have been sold and citizens will be rehabbing them. So that's a key point right there.
Well, we had Tammy Daniels on here a lot, and Penny is a great spokesman for the land bank. So, in other words, the land bank, y'all want to go out of business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The city of Detroit is not in the business of just holding on. We don't want to be the holders of property. We need that land in the hands of individuals that's going to develop it, that's going to create housing, that's going to do something, because vacant land does nothing for the general fund when it comes to tax dollars.
Yes, you did. There's always a lot of pressure put on the police department and based on stats, crimes going up, stats and stuff like that. It always seems to me there's too much pressure put on just the police department. How is like the overall view of dealing with education, economics and stuff like that, which all feed in? How do you see that as all feeding into the crime issue here in the city?
It's an ecosystem. It's holistic. You think about, the human body, right? It all functions as a system. And so everybody has to get on board, put the egos aside, work together to be able to address the root causes. Now, egos are always
how do we do that?
Right. But we do have folks in the city of Detroit to step it up. And so you will hear, whether it's from our grassroots and other individuals, chanting the mantra, One Detroit. I just left a press conference yesterday with New Era, one of the CBI groups that we invested in. And I'm not talking about small money. We're talking about that these 6 groups in the city of Detroit, each one of them won annually a base of at least $700,000. At least $700,000. And we tied in a performance bonus as well.
Okay, so, folks, I worked Coleman Young back in the day, and people, the former mayor said, in order to make this a world-class city, somebody got to tackle the issue of the school district. I'm an advocate of the city should at least have some say in how it runs. We go from 200,000 students to what, 30,000? How can you attract, newcomers that have kids, and you say, well, send them to DPS, and they looking at you like crazy.
You know what? You a straight shooter, you go right to it. And so 2 of the biggest challenges in the city of Detroit really is crime, which is a direct responsibility of the mayor's office. Now, the school district is separate. We know that falls up under the state. It's the superintendent. But to your point, I do agree. The city does. This is Todd Bettison speaking. So I'm not speaking for the mayor. I'm speaking for Todd Bettison, with just being a longtime resident. And my mother was she's a retired school teacher. She did 38 years. So I definitely.
Where at?
She taught elementary. And so she retired from under Irma Henderson over there on West Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah, so she taught on the east and on the west. But to that point, she complained about that all the time. Folks are going to make decisions based off of education and safety about where they're going to live. So I agree with you on that point.
There's no question, because when there was abandoned houses, like on the east side used to be Grant School, and my wife was teaching kindergarten at the time. And I go back to DPW and say they need to do something. They tear down the house. Next month, it seemed like another house pop up. Man, it was never ending around that, man. People start moving their kids out of the school system. Our kids are there. Our kids are in Macomb County, Oakland County, Wayne County school districts. And if somebody is going to raise a family here, you got to have more than just 2 schools or 3 schools. Everybody can't go to Cass. Everybody can't go to Renaissance. You need to go to their neighborhood schools. But where are they?
Yeah, one of the things that, in a society that they did too, is, you saw the pop-up of all these charter schools as well, giving folks options. And so that's a topic that could be its own segment on the show, but we definitely need the superintendent here sitting here as well. And I don't know if he's been on your show yet, Nick Lividi, but he needs to come here, and we need to have a longer conversation about that. But circling back to the crime piece and the whole ecosystem, abandoned houses and blight. with the city holistically working together is we get down places where individuals can pull somebody in, can rape somebody, can stash a body, and we eliminate that. We're making it a lot easier for the police department, and then also giving the officers a raise. We gave a $10,000 raise recently, and I want to thank City Council for signing off and approving on that, because you know what that did? The city of Detroit never had a hiring problem. We could always hire officers, we could never keep them.
Retention.
And so, yeah, it was retention. So now we're able to keep them. And with that raise, Mongo, guess what? My phone is blowing up with officers across the country who left us saying, I want to come back home.
What is the pay range right now for police?
Oh, yeah, they're starting at like 50, and I got officers, going all the way up to 80 now. And so they're in good shape. And
Do we have enough officers?
Right,
Or do we still need more?
That's my next
Do we
question.
still need more?
Are you in the process of hiring?
Absolutely. Send them our way. We got roughly about 200 vacancies.
What about y'all cadet program? How y'all working? Is that still in play?
Yeah, we have cadets. Our cadet program is a little bit different, and so we have what we call junior police cadets, and during the summer month, through Grow Detroit Young Talent, we typically have about 1,400 kids in our cadet program during the summer months.
I have a question. Economic development. We've seen a few more grocery stores. We've seen Myers coming 8 Mile over on Grand River and 7 or whatever. We've seen them on Jefferson Avenue. There are some. I go to the one on Jefferson Avenue. I go to the Harbor Town.
I love it.
And I go to Whole Foods. Can we expect, like, when Deadline Detroit, we tried to push for Trader Joe's to come into the city and wrote a column, and we bugged them, and they, for some reason, when Whole Foods comes into a city, they improve the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And Trader Joe's, I told them, you guys would kill it here, and they won't come.
Well, because you look at, I go down river, I see a Kroger's here, a Kroger's there, a Kroger's over there, and I say, you can't get Kroger's, but it's like Kroger's is, they might disintegrate if they build a store here in Detroit, man. They're talking to people like that.
Success builds upon success, and when they see other businesses and corporations coming here, they take interest. One of the key things that a lot of citizens don't know is those big corporations, what they look for is rooftops. They count houses. And so it always hurts us when they look at the population density of a neighborhood, and they'll look and say, well, what is the census saying? What is the population? And because they know that.
But you know and I know that they'll build a store right on the border of Detroit, and they say, oh, we can't build in Detroit because the money ain't there. But guess what? Half the people that go to that store, where? Right there in Detroit.
If you build it in Detroit and you build it in the right location, the people will come. The people are here. And to that point, what proves it is the fact that none of them went out of business. You look at Whole Foods, they're still in business.
They're doing great.
Absolutely. You look at Myers, the one at 8 Mile and Woodward. That pool is suburbanites. It's in a key location. This pool is suburbanites. It's easy access to thoroughfare. And so we're going to keep on building.
Has there been any talk with any of the...
It's talks all the time.
Yeah.
And you can look...
We worked on Trader Joe's. I think that would be a great
addition. Question.
I go out to Royal Oak for Trader Joe's, but
here's one of my pet peeves. And I know you got a busy day today. Man, why is the Ferndale police and the Hazel Park police and them, they going deep into the city and giving people tickets? I've been arguing about that. But our resident police experts saying, well, it's a fine line when it's going 8 Mile Road and all this other place.
So it depends.
6% of the people that live in Ferndale are African Americans. 80% of the tickets they give the folks are African Americans. 80% of the people they arrest are African Americans. Tell me what's wrong with that.
I don't like it either. It doesn't seem right. And so I'm always going to be a straight shooter, right? And so if you look at a city and their population is 90%, other than African American. But if you go to that courthouse and the courtroom and you got 90% of the people sitting in court who getting tickets who African American, we got a real problem with that. And so that's the problem. And so that's where it's so important to hold these other entities accountable, shine the spotlight on it, and then ensure that they got body cameras. Because Detroit Police Department, we've been way ahead of the game. Now, I'm not saying that it's always been the best. And throughout my career, it was a federal consent decree that drug us along, kicking and screaming, and it did some great things because the cameras, that body camera shows everybody what's happening, and you get a chance to hear and see what's going on.
You
Okay,
feel
why
like
don't we hold tight?
All right.
Take a break. If we come back, we'll wrap
I'm
it.
Wayne County Treasurer Eric Sabri. We are living through unprecedented times. As a result, the Michigan Homeowner Assistance Fund was created. This fund, administered by the state of Michigan, is designed to help homeowners cope with pandemic-related hardships, such as delinquent property taxes. Residents may apply for up to $25,000 to help cover 2019, 2020, and 2021 tax years. Previous year's taxes must be paid in full or in a payment agreement with the Treasurer's office. Eligible homeowners must have a qualified financial hardship that occurred on or after January 21st, 2020. You must currently own and occupy your home as your primary residence and must have owned it since January 21st, 2020. To see if you qualify, please visit waynemetro.org, call 313-388-9799, or email textinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Okay, we're back. You had a question.
I was saying, Detroit's been so fortunate, knock on wood, in terms of like shootings of or traffic stops and stuff like that. Has Detroit done anything different in terms of de-escalating confrontations? Has there been a lot of training with officers on that?
Detroit has not been quick to shoot. It's a level of trust that we have with our community. The body cameras help out a whole lot because we're going to put that body cam out so everybody can see.
Right.
And so if you go back and you look at the history, we train our officers, it's just a real difference when you have officers that are from the community and that are not afraid of the community. So that makes a real difference. I look at some of the stuff that happen around the country, and I just see officers that really are afraid of some of the community, and they're a little bit too happy with the trigger, too fast. I don't see that in the city of Detroit. Never saw it during my 27-year career.
Okay, and we wrap this up. What can we look forward to in the coming of the next year, political-wise, quickly? You know what? The mayor surprised everybody when he made you the deputy mayor.
The mayor surprised me when he made me deputy mayor, and so I asked the mayor, I'm like, hey, I'm over here enjoying the good life, hanging out with Chief White in the Detroit Police Department. But he said, hey, man, Todd, you get stuff done. You've been out here, you're part of the community, and you just want to get stuff done. And being political is being responsible. I've always been responsible, and I didn't change my cell phone number when I became deputy mayor. So everybody who could call me can still get me.
I have a quick question. The difference between deputy mayor and chief of staff. I always wonder, is there just you divvy up roles or
it's a big difference. The chief of staff runs the office.
Okay.
I'm out here. I'm a tiebreaker in the office. I got departments that I run, and I'm the real number 2 of the city of Detroit.
I get it.
Okay, last question. The mayor decide not to run. You gonna get involved?
I'm focusing right now. I'm focusing
No,
on being.
I
know. As soon as the mayor announced I was deputy mayor, I got that same question. And so the thing about it is, man, I'm just focusing on being the best deputy mayor that they've ever had. That's my goal. Okay. I want to make sure that I'm serving the citizens and that we get the stuff done. And if the people demand it, if you say, we have another conversation.
Okay. Well, Todd Bettison, deputy mayor, you got to come back, bro. You know what? What can I say?
I'm Jim Nardone.
All right.
Well, thanks, Todd.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim.
Great
All right.
We
That was
take
great
a little video of my little young friend.
Intro it helps.
Yeah. And you know what? I got a call from a former classmate of mine. And he was, I asked him how he was doing. He said he wasn't doing so hot. He said his grandchild passed away from an asthma attack. and he said, "Can you take a look at this video that he made for his mother?" Let's play. His name is Darnell.
Hey, Mommy. So, I wanted to send you this video because I love you, Mommy. I won't ever forget you. I'm a grown-up, a baby, a kid.
Man, and 2 days later, or whatever, he's gone.
He died of asthma.
I had a severe asthma attack. They got a GoFundMe.
Right.
Yeah, man. I tell you.
It's hard to imagine a tragedy like that. It's hard to
we take a lot of stuff for granted. So I wanted to play that for Nate Smalls. You remember Nate?
Right.
Yeah.
Nate and his brother Ted Small.
Yeah.
They were actually, they were really pioneers. I mean, we were in Oak Park. It was all white except for the Smalls family. It was the first family. I think father was a doctor, and they came to our school. I mean, it was totally cool. I mean, I don't think they ever had any problems.
No, y'all had problems with the township kids. The ones that would bust in.
In seventh grade we integrated totally in junior high and high school with the township kids would bus to us. But I think generally we all got along pretty well.
This tells you how people didn't know other people. When I was in the 7th, 8th grade, they wanted me to talk to the incoming students in junior high about the shop program. No more than I knew anything about shop. I could make a salt and pepper shake. Well, they said, "Oh yeah, he can build stuff."
But we always tell the story that Adolph and I had the same social studies class, Mrs. Turner. I had first hour, and we had a 50 true and false test. And so at the end of the class, Mrs. Turner says, "Look, the answers are all true." After we hand in our paper, and she says, "But don't tell any other of the classes, because I'm going to use the same test." So I see Adolph in the hallway, and I go, "All true."
I say it's a setup.
And Adolph's like, "Do I trust this white boy?"
No, yeah, I did trust him. I put 3 wrong. I had the highest score. But anyway, that's the way it is, man. I tell you. Todd, I'm glad that he came on the show because I think that, contrary to what he said, I think he's going to run for office. Oh, well, he got, listen. These guys out there in the community dealing with the community groups and stuff, it's like you build support, and he was talking about New Era, these kind of organizations. Those are young folks. They the ones to get the vote out, etc. Young looking guy, 27 years doesn't seem like that.
And I'm going to give a little plug for the Detroit police officers. I tell you what, I worked in a narcotics unit with some Detroit police officers. They're the finest police officers on the planet. The finest police officers. Unbelievable.
What, you trying to come out of retirement?
No, I'm done. I'm pretty happy.
Or do you want to be the undersheriff?
No, I'm good.
I knew a lot of those narcotic cops.
When you got people, but you got people that
some a little crazy.
You got people that got bad experiences with cops, etc. But the bottom line, I'm glad he came on the show, and that tells you that they want to get his message out, and that's a good thing.
I think it's good that they came out, because sometimes we have been critical of the administration and not just more on issue-oriented stuff. And so, as Adolph says, it's great that they're not afraid. It's like, in Washington, when you wanted to get your word out, if you weren't afraid, if you had something controversial going on, you went on Meet the Press, where you weren't going to get any breaks. Tim Russell or whatever, you weren't going to back down. If you were afraid to talk, you went on Larry King, because you knew you could dodge the questions, you get softball questions and stuff like that. When you wanted the real deal and you weren't afraid, you go on Meet the Press and field some of the tough questions. So it's good that he's willing to come on, because this guy in particular is not always easy on,
Well, I just want to, you know what, I want to play the end with G. Robinson. This clip is dedicated to a weak ass, thin-skinned asshole who I don't have to say his name.
You can dish it out, but you got so that you can't take it no more.
Yeah, he can dish it out, but he can't take it. And you know what? Listen, they say the truth shall set you free. Okay, I'm free.
Well, so did you guys watch the debate?
I did watch.
Was that Pele? Was that Pele? Anyway, yeah, I watched the debate. It was a waste of time.
I mean, it's interesting because, as they say, Donald Trump sitting back, he's leading 50 points or whatever. I mean, he's dominant there, and I don't know. It's so, to me, amazing. He has become really a cult figure in our country that people don't care. It used to be you debate and people go, well, blah, blah, blah. And then you say, well, what about this, and that? And they go, I don't care. I want him. Look, Biden's not the strongest candidate against, and somebody like, who knows, Nikki Haley might be able to.
But Biden, you know what? The Democrats not packaged for him, right? There's no question. He's done some pretty good things. And then some things he hasn't done.
I think the state of course is the strategy for the Democrats. I guess the question to both of you, are people going to gravitate to Nikki Haley? My problem with Nikki Haley, just briefly, is that she had a test for president. I thought the people had the opportunity to decide who was president.
And then she keeps saying he's not going to live out his term and shit. And yeah, she can walk out down the street right now and get hit by a fucking car.
Right.
You never know when your time is up. Your time is up. But she's like Miss Cleo. Remember Miss Cleo?
Yeah.
Read the palm.
The Ouija board.
Yeah.
But you know what? I mean, it's interesting. At this current moment, none of them have a chance against Trump. If Trump, for some reason, gets pushed aside, and I don't know how that's going to happen, even upon a conviction, he certainly wouldn't be sentenced. Not likely he'd be sentenced before the election. I mean, if he gets tried, and the case, Jack Smith wants to do the case in D.C. in January, they could be done conceivably by February, early March. Usually sentencing takes 3-4 months. They do sentencing, re-sentencing reports, all that. But as it gets closer to the election, they may say, well, we may wait till afterwards. But I think the American people have to know what they're getting.
They know what they get. 70 million people voted for Donald Trump.
Well, you have some experience in the federal court system, and you'll be talking to a guest here shortly. He could serve another term before his conviction comes through. The way the federal system works, it could be 5 years.
I mean, he could. I wouldn't say. I would say he'd serve a whole. I mean, look, he can delay sentencing a little bit, and then he can appeal, and then that becomes a question. Look, when Kwame got sentenced, I was shocked because having covered for decades federal court, usually like white collar criminals, they get to report. Like Chief Hart, he reported like probably a month later he got on a plane.
Nancy Edmonds had a hard on for them.
She didn't like Kwame. There's no question about it.
She locked him up. You're not going anywhere.
He got, I mean, she sentenced him to 28 years, and then I was shocked. The marshals came and she said, he's not going anywhere. They handcuffed him and took him away. And I was like, wow, I have not seen that, because I've seen so many cases where people get, like I said, Chief Hart.
They let that guy in D.C. He on the run, the Proud Boy.
Right.
Let's take a break. We'll be back. This is Detroit in Black and White. Allan Lengel, Jim Nardone. We'll be right back.
I'm Wayne County Treasurer Eric Sabri. We are living through unprecedented times. As a result, the Michigan Homeowner Assistance Fund was created. This fund, administered by the state of Michigan, is designed to help homeowners cope with pandemic-related hardships, such as delinquent property taxes. Residents may apply for up to $25,000 to help cover 2019, 2020, and 2021 tax years. Previous year's taxes must be paid in full or in a payment agreement with the Treasurer's office. Eligible homeowners must have a qualified financial hardship that occurred on or after January 21st, 2020. You must currently own and occupy your home as your primary residence and must have owned it since January 21st, 2020. To see if you qualify, please visit waynemetro.org, call 313-388-9799, or email taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Okay, we back. Allan, how can someone
watch us? Well,
yeah.
you can watch us live, as some of you are doing right now. You can watch us on the platforms of the YouTube station of Deadline Detroit and Detroit in Black and White. We are on Twitter in the Deadline, and we're also on Facebook in Detroit in Black and White. We're on Deadline's Facebook. And then also we do have a website, which is a great website, called DetroitInBlackAndWhite.com. It has every show from the very beginning. And we have it not only on video where you can watch, we also have it in audio. We have it on podcasts. You can also go to your favorite podcast, whether it's Apple or whatever, and download a podcast and listen to us in your car, wherever you might listen to your podcast. But there's multiple ways it lives on beyond this live show. We get an audience from the live show, but we also get a bigger audience afterwards from people watching.
Okay.
And it's also posted on Deadline Detroit on the website, which is still sort of half operational.
Okay, well, we supposed to have a guest, a whistleblower from the city of Taylor, but we'll talk about what just took place. Rick Silas, a former mayor of Taylor, your buddy, right? Your buddy.
I'm familiar with him. I wouldn't call him.
But anyway, was he indicted in 2018?
I think it was 18 or 19.
And he just pleaded guilty.
That was my comment about Donald Trump. If he delayed it, it could be 5 years.
Allan, you covered the fans. Why so long?
You know what? It's amazing how long it takes to put together a case. They're very meticulous and sometimes very slow. And sometimes what happens is in a grand jury, you have some important witnesses you need to track down. You can't find them. They don't want to cooperate. Sometimes they put pressure on them. These things take a long time. And look, the feds have a pretty good record, but not a perfect record. They've lost some big cases before. They've lost a case where Feiger and Van Johnson were on Carl Molinga.
Yeah.
They have lost some big cases, so they try to take, and 2 years investigation is not unusual for the feds.
They lost that case where they arrested all those bikers. And Victoria Roberts said, no.
The Wolverine, I saw when I was at the Detroit News, the Wolverine golf course, they indicted a bunch of suspected organized crime figures. They had maybe 140 counts. There were probably about 8 defendants. And I was in court when they read the verdict, and 140 not guilty. And you see the prosecutor kind of slipping down like that. So it's not unusual. I mean, we see with Fani Willis, everyone was like, what took her so long? She had a monster of an indictment, 19 people. Look, if she had just indicted Donald Trump, she could have probably done it a year ago. But she wanted to get the whole enchilada, as they say. It takes a lot of work, and it takes people before the grand jury. You catch people lying in the grand jury. You can't use them.
Didn't she indict too many people?
You know what? Her case is unmanageable as one. If she says, yeah, I'm going to do it all at once. The most I've seen, I think that the Chamber brothers here in Detroit where they probably had, and I'm just guessing from remembering, I covered the trial, maybe 10 defendants, and it's a chore. But when you have 19, that's insanity. I mean, first of all, some are going to plead, some are going to cooperate. Not all of them are going to go to trial. Some are going to work out something. Some are going to ask to sever their case and not be part of that all. And what you see sometimes is you have some attorneys who start attacking the other clients, and there's fights that go on. I mean, you have to coordinate and say, look, when you cross-examine this person, don't throw my client under the bus, and that happens.
So let me ask you a question, Allan, if I may. I love the book. Land of Opportunity was the book about the Chambers brothers.
Oh, yeah, okay. And I triggered that all, I wrote about.
You know Tony Chambers?
Yeah,
attorney.
Yeah. Tony was an attorney in there. Tony was a young federal defender, did a great job.
Yeah.
Tony was a really skilled, but the Chambers brothers, I wrote the story after the trial about how they ran everything as a business. They had rules on the crack house walls, like no friends, none of this, none of that, no smoking crack, whatever. They'd have payday once a week where they'd all show up at some crack house, and the Chamber brothers would be paying out the money. I wrote the story. The New York Times picked up on it out of the Chicago bureau. They wrote a story, and the head of the New York Times, the editor, was going, "Oh my God, complimenting her, what a great story." It was my fucking story. And then a guy named Bill Adler from Austin, Texas, came up, and we talked quite a bit. He saw the New York Times story, and he wrote a book on the Chambers brothers.
So they profited off of you. The only Chambers brothers I knew was the music group.
And the Chambers brothers, just to explain, were four brothers from Arkansas who started. They
were country boys.
Yeah, they were country boys who took over. Who took over the crack trade on the east side of Detroit. And what happened was, the cops were starting to, they started buying crack houses because you could buy a house for $1,000. They had these crack houses everywhere, and suddenly all these DA agents and the Detroit narcotics were like, "We're hearing stuff about this gang, the Chambers. We don't know anything about them." And they got bigger and bigger, and suddenly they were.
They threw on the money.
Money. Yeah,
so what's really
they were like, "We're rich motherfuckers," they're throwing money.
Right.
They're all out, I think. But yeah, they were. And I used to talk to Billy Joe, and one of the other ones would call me after the trial. They were from prison. They
weren't you scared of them?
No.
So could he been the CEO of Ford Motor Company?
These guys,
yes, that's what was fascinating about this story.
They used to say that about Vito Giacalone. The Giacalones, they say that guy could have been a U.S. senator. He was so smart, so charming, but they chose a different route.
And well, we still got criminals in the Senate.
Yeah.
Well, the bigger question is, would they have had that opportunity otherwise?
Yeah. I mean, they weren't formally educated, but they were smart. They were smart people.
Well, anyway, guess who I remember? Henry Marset. Yeah, I met his wife the other night, and his daughter. Okay. I used to read about Marset. You heard about Marset. I guess they were working on a documentary. He was a decorated Detroit cop turned drug kingpin.
It happens. In D.C., we worked on a crooked cop. He was getting paid. He would tip off whenever there were raids going to happen. He would tip them off, and so after a while, when they do raids, they take everybody's phone, everybody's pagers, and the feds busted the guy. Eventually, it happened. I think it's a lot more common when we saw Young Boys Incorporated. We'd see as part of the second trial. I think there was a deputy sheriff who was tracing tags to let people know if they were undercover.
So now he's a special agent for the FBI. But anyway, as we come to a close, and I really thank you, Jim Nardone, for being here, sitting in for we call our resident shit starter, Vanessa Moss. Your final thoughts?
My final thoughts are on the nation. We need to become united again. you read blogs, you read internet, you watch podcasts, and everybody's fighting. Let's listen to other people. Why do we not listen to other people's opinions?
I agree. I think we have to get back away from some of the craziness that's going on. Particularly, I mean, the Republican Party has to get its shit together. I mean, we have Christina Caramo as the head of the Republican Party here in Michigan. I mean, it's insanity. You have a cult figure who's leading. I mean, there are some good candidates out there. There are some very smart people, very reasonable people. Let's get back to, this country doesn't need more craziness. And we have to pay attention to climate change. I mean, you're watching on the news the insanity we're seeing in Maui. We're seeing flood. We're seeing for the first time, craziness out in, hurricanes in California. There's something happening to the world. The ice caps are melting. The water is warming and heating up. The earth is warming up. And things are going crazy here, and in the climate, we have to pay attention to that. You can't have a guy, like candidates.
He in your head, Allan.
No, I'm not saying him. The young gentleman I can never, the Indian, who says climate change is a hoax. We can't. It's
no hoax.
It's like COVID.
Ask the 250 people that died in Phoenix, Arizona because of heat. It's not a hoax. And I say that the Democrats better not take this shit for granted, because they'll wake up and find that Donald Trump will be elected again. And Donald Trump is so deranged that he would probably say, you know what, I'm not ever leaving. You're gonna have to just take me out. But bottom line is that the people of this city, we need to get rid of these so-called congressional people that represent Detroit. I don't even have to say their name. I mean,
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the next election we've got John James, who is, I think, vulnerable in Macomb County. Here in Detroit,
he can't even say. He can't even pronounce grass yet. I'm sorry.
I mean, here in Detroit, it's a shame that there is not a black. We have one Congress member.
Well, people didn't vote. They didn't do what they needed to do.
But it was also the coordination of the Democrats.
Well, the Democrats is full of shit at times. But anyway, we'll be back next week. Detroit in black and white with Allan Lengel, Jim Nardone. I really appreciate you. Thanks, Teresa, Henry. Couldn't have this broadcast without him.
Yep, absolutely. All right, we'll see everyone.
And thanks, Bob Roberts from McShane's.
Right. And next week we've got the Jazz Fest.
Yes.
And the Labor Day Parade is back, I think, maybe for the first time.
Since we're gonna have John Coltrane, Cannonball Adderley. We're gonna have all the people, Billie Holiday. Yeah, live here at McShane.
All right.
See you next week.